Welcome to the Ghoul's Guide to Santa Barbara. Here we are at some random-ass ranch, and this is the brand.
Is it City Slickers?
Nope.
I would be shocked if Summers did City Slicker.
I've never even seen it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like your kind of movie. That is not the movie.
It's not that.
Okay.
Gosh.
Okay, do you want a hint?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to use Jen's hint of, based on what you know of me,
It's British. No. Okay.
No.
it's my other thing that I was recently
Is it a
obsessed
Jackass
with.
movie?
Oh, okay.
Is it Jackass the movie?
Is it
Close.
Jackass 3D?
Close in between those two.
Jackass 2.
Yes. Jackass number 2. That was Bam's intro for when he gets branded.
He got branded?
Yeah, it's real bad.
God.
It gets really infected.
Oh, no.
But apparently, and then his mom was really upset. Ape was upset because she was like, "You're going to have that for life." But apparently, they just did a bad job on it, so it healed up in 5 years.
Oh, my gosh. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I think they should do a rebrand. Bam. If you're listening, you should rebrand.
No, maybe don't.
Don't do.
Maybe rebrand your life.
Oh.
Oh,
bit.
come on. He is trying.
I'm not sure delving into conspiracy is trying.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
we're
true.
not going to.
No, well, I could prepare a defensive Bam.
Have you guys seen this new show? It's called like The Garden Commune or Cult or something like that.
No.
No, but
It's like
I want to.
It was like this is right up Jen's alley.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like people go to this, like commune, but then they're like, oh, I don't. What did I sign up for?
God,
Wow.
The idea of a commune sounds so wonderful, except for all the other people.
Yeah.
I think it's on Discovery Channel. Anyway, we'll have to check it out.
I saw a great. Sorry, this is getting a little off topic, but I saw a great meme the other day that was like, "If we all go off grid, then the commies can't get us." And it was like, yes. If we all form communes, the commies can't get us.
Okay, speaking of communism, there's a Mark Steele lecture on Karl Marx, which is an excellent watch or listen. So
Okay.
maybe link it. I don't know.
Okay.
Gosh,
good.
all these recommendations.
Yep.
I'll be so busy.
Well, I feel like Jackass number 2 is not a great recommendation because either you've seen it if you're a Jackass type person, or maybe you don't need to.
I probably saw it, but
Yeah.
it's just been a long time.
Yeah.
That I feel like that time in media was such an interesting course where we just watched people do terrible things to each other
and themselves.
Yeah,
I
and it
know.
really just ushered in that just this weird era of. I mean, I guess we're still kind of in it with all these reality TV stuff.
Yeah.
But
I miss it. I
Yeah.
miss Jackass movies. The last one did not count.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. This is the Ghoul's Guide to Santa Barbara. I'm Liz.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Summers.
And today, Jen is going to tell us about the notorious mother-son duo of Sante and Kenny Kimes.
Oh.
Yes, I am. So this one is interesting to me because I did not realize that there were connections to Santa Barbara.
I forgot
What?
our show's about Santa Barbara, so I was like, oh, where is this story going to take place?
It actually
it's
takes
here?
place. It literally takes place all over, but it comes back to Santa Barbara a few times.
Okay.
So
I'm in.
yeah, that's why I guess I've sort of settled into a pattern of maritime-based murders and disasters, and then just wild stories about wild people.
Cool.
So strap yourself in,
Okay.
because this one's going to be a wild ride. So, Sandra Singers, not the person that you thought I was going to be talking about,
Okay.
was born to Mary Van Horn on July 24th, 1934 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Okay.
In the mid-1930s, her family of 6, so 4 children and parents, moved to Los Angeles where her father, Prama Mahendra Singers, abandoned the family on the side of the road
Oh, no.
in
Oh, my gosh.
1937. Leaving
Sorry,
her mother
what year?
What?
What year?
1937.
30s, okay.
So this is Depression era, and that probably was
Yes.
kind of common,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Gosh.
Ugh.
So leaves their mother to possibly turn to prostitution in order to support her children. Sandra grew up feeling ashamed and experiencing racism based on her family's East Indian immigrant background.
Oh no.
They're very poor, often suffering, and Sandra claims that she ended up stealing food from grocery stores in order to feed her and her siblings. Her mother's work leaves her separated from the kids, and Sandra claims she was molested by several adults by age 8. Yeah. As she grew up, according to her estranged sister, Sandra had an incestuous relationship with her older brother.
Oh no.
And was a pyromaniac who liked to hold lit matches underneath her sister's fingers for fun. She would tie up the goats and dogs on her family's farm and use hat pins to mutilate and torture them.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so just really rough upbringing. And some of those like check off the boxes for things
Oh, right.
that,
Warning
lead to,
signs for.
Yeah. However, I'm just going to say a note here that by the time you get to the end of the story, you will be in the same boat as me as could all this have been completely made up? I don't know. The facts are very hard to tie down in this person's life. And yeah, I would read one source and it would say one thing happened in 1 year, and then I would read a different source and it said a slightly different name and a slightly different time period and a slightly different place. So eventually all 4 of the singer's siblings ended up in foster homes or orphanages as their mother could not care for them. Sandra, the last to be separated from her mother, basically spent the last bit of that time running wild on the streets of Los Angeles. In 1947, at the age of 13, she was adopted by Edwin and Mary Chambers in order to provide her a better life. They were basically like the friends of this theater owner that somehow knew the family, and they were like, hey, your daughter needs some structure in her life. How about we just adopt her? And so they did. And apparently her mother was like, great, take her. Like, that'll free up more of my time.
For my interests.
Exactly. So after she was adopted, she moved to Carson City, Nevada, and took on the name Sandy Chambers. However, her life did not actually become a whole lot easier, as she soon found herself the victim of repeated sexual abuse at the hands of her adopted father, Edwin. At school, Sandy earned a reputation as a bully who frequently belittled and intimidated younger students. Yeah. She attempted to tell her adoptive mother about the abuse at one time, but the mother basically just victim blamed her and told her that she should have stayed away from the dad or not put herself in those situations.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Ugh. May I just say
yes,
that's so common.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially with a formerly single mother who has found a breadwinner husband.
Yep.
And the husband abuses one of the older girls, and then the mother sees that not as something that she should prevent, but as a threat to like her taking her man or something.
Totally.
It is something that still happens.
Yeah.
It's like
Super
one of the
gross.
most common tropes in foster care.
Awful.
So when Sandy was just 16, she shoplifted some makeup from a convenience store. Even though her family had plenty of money now, Sandy slipped a tube of lipstick into her pocket and was caught on the way out. She was arrested, but later released, likely due to her being a minor without a record. But for Sandy, it gave her a sense of power and invincibility that started a path she'd follow the rest of her life. Again, common,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sandy graduated from high school in 1952, and in the interest of trying to make a better life for herself, she took a secretarial class with her best friend, Ruth. Sandy and Ruth decided to move to Sacramento in search of a fresh start.
Go Kings.
And then a year later, they relocated briefly to San Francisco. Then from 1954 to 1955, they both attended journalism classes at the University of California in Santa Barbara.
Hey.
She crossed paths with and began dating one of her former high school suitors, Lee Powers, during this time. And she started to view their relationship as an opportunity for security and social gain, thinking like, I'll be a wife, I'll,
turn her life around.
turn my life around. But Lee seems like he doesn't want to commit. So she claims to be pregnant, knowing that based on the time period and his upbringing, he'd feel like he needed to make an honest woman out of her and marry her. So once they get married, she realizes that life with Lee would be simple, and she'd be expected to be a stay-at-home housewife, which is not really interesting to her. So she divorces him 3 months later.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In 1955, Sandy opens a department store credit card account in the name of Ruth's boyfriend's father, charging $400 on it and then disappearing.
Oh, gosh.
Sandy then reunites with another former high school boyfriend, Edward Walker, who she finds out is now a successful general contractor in the Sacramento area. So she sees that as like, maybe this will get me the life that I need. So she writes him a letter telling him how much she misses him and how she wants to connect with him again, thinking that he'll read this and be like, yes.
Is that like the then version of sliding into his DMs?
Pretty much. She slides into his
Mailbox.
USPS DMs. But when that doesn't get the response that she wants, she just shows up on his doorstep.
As you do.
She and Ed marry on November 9th, 1957.
It worked.
She's good at this.
She is very good at this.
Okay.
Just have to be assertive.
Well, and I think sometimes when you've had childhood trauma, you might learn survival skills that involve getting people to do what you want them to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I didn't, but some people do.
Some people can really harness their trauma for good.
I know.
It's a
Whereas
talent.
mine is just annoying.
Sandy constantly insists Ed take on more and more work to earn them more money. However, she spends their money even faster than he can make it. In one Christmas alone, she racks up over $13,000 in credit card charges
In the
buying
50s?
elaborate gifts for people. Wow. Yeah. That's when her dark path of con artist and arson begin. Sandy,
Woohoo! I did not know that was coming. Okay.
I told you to strap in.
Okay.
Sandy, so like feeling the pressure of this credit card debt and feeling like her husband is not making enough money to cover her extravagant lifestyle, she sets fire to their house in Sacramento to collect the insurance money.
What?
Only the kitchen is destroyed, but they get $10,000 for it. So she's like, look, honey, I got us like most of the money that I spent.
But that's supposed to pay for a new kitchen,
I know, right?
Well, I guess they had a couple houses, so, that one was expendable.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody suspects the fraud, but by now Sandy just almost couldn't stop herself from this kind of stuff. And the same year, she's arrested for stealing a hairdryer.
Oh.
She pleads guilty and pays the $129 fine. When her husband confronts her about why she stole a hairdryer they could obviously afford, she instead blamed him for not providing enough and making her feel like she needed to save them some money.
Oh, gosh.
So she was like, you just don't make me enough money. I was trying to be helpful and save us some money.
Wow.
On a hairdryer. So now Sandy has a taste for the finer things and also a heightened sense of indestructibility. So she reinvents herself once again, going by the name of Sante, and continues down her path of destruction.
This is wild.
I know.
Just
and this is
wait.
worse than Bam Margera's path of destruction, I would like to say.
Remember how I told you like an hour ago? If you ever feel like your life choices
Yes.
are not great,
Yeah.
at least you are not Sante Kimes.
Okay.
Oh.
So
I feel like that's a real low bar, but thank you.
It is, but it's helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
So during the course of her marriage with Ed, dozens of homes that he had supervised the construction of burned down.
Oh.
Sante had a number of affairs with Walker's wealthy business associates,
Yuck.
using their relationships as an excuse to become involved in their financial dealings and then stealing from them.
Whoa.
Oh, okay.
Her husband even learns of these affairs during a trial in which he was suing and won one of his business partners for not paying their subcontractors, when all along it had been Sante who had been forging the checks and stealing. So basically she hooks up with one of, he gets this partnership to build like a multi-million-dollar housing
Development.
Mm-hmm. And then she has an affair with the guy in charge.
Wow.
And then the vendors start calling and being like, hey, or the subcontractors are like, hey, nope, we're not getting paid. And it turns out that money that was supposed to be paying them, Sante was like skimming for herself.
No way.
So her husband is like, you're not like, how come you're not paying the subcontractors? I'm going to sue you. And then during the course of that trial, the guy's like, well, your wife, who I've been sleeping with,
was also
is stealing
my bookkeeper.
money. Yeah, it's also my bookkeeper and is stealing the money. And then he wins the case. So he actually like recovers the money.
Oh.
So Sante freaks out and she's like, oh no, like now that my husband knows about this, he's going to leave me. So she announces she's pregnant. In 1962,
Babe.
Sante has her first child, Kent Walker.
Oh, so she was actually pregnant. Okay.
Is actually pregnant this time. It was never confirmed whether or not Kent is actually Ed's child, although she claimed he was. It feels like they could have just like done a test to make sure, but
not then though.
But later,
yeah,
at some point,
yeah.
Anyway, that's their.
Oh no, actually, maybe they could have. They might have been able to do like blood typing.
Sure.
Or, yeah. Sorry,
I don't know. Maybe they did. I didn't. Look
No, I'm just saying. Like, you're right with your. Why didn't they just?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it wouldn't have been above her to have pulled something like that.
Well, but like,
sure. What was above her? Nothing.
Yeah,
Right?
nothing
Okay,
is really beneath her.
Oh, beneath her. Yeah, sorry.
Eventually, Sante felt like Ed could never give her quite the extravagant life of her dreams, and so she leaves him in a search for an upgrade.
See this trend where nothing is going to satisfy her.
Yeah.
In 1964, she moves to a condo in Burbank, California, attempting to start anew. However, her criminal activities continue. She opens several credit cards in different names, accumulates $20,000 in debt, and when the police catch on to her scheme, she's charged with 17 counts of grand theft. She possibly engaged in some prostitution during this time in Los Angeles and was also arrested for auto theft. One of her former lawyers tells the story. Sante walked into a Cadillac dealership and conned the salesman into letting her test drive a convertible alone. And of course, she never came back and drove the car for months as if she owned it.
Oh my gosh.
When the police catch up with her, she told them she'd been given the car to test drive, and that's what she had been doing. Still test driving it.
The audacity of this woman.
Yes, audacity is her middle name. The year 1966 saw Sante and her new boyfriend Clyde stealing in Los Angeles, then burning a house in Palm Springs to claim insurance money for the stolen items. They also attempted to burn her still husband Ed's Laurel Canyon house down, but only the top half was damaged. Sante and Ed's divorce was finalized at the end of 1967, and she then embarked on a restless journey with her young son. She moved frequently and became increasingly violent. She was now going back and attacking Ed and his new girlfriend multiple times over the next 2 years. In 1969, she and Clyde shoot blanks at Ed on a mountain road, claiming he had turned on them.
What?
She eventually even begins using her 10-year-old son, Kent, as an accomplice to sneak into houses and steal things for her.
Oh, gosh.
In 1971, she met motel tycoon Kenneth Keith Kimes Sr. after reading a spotlight about him in Millionaire magazine.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
And learning that he had a net worth of approximately $20 million, was handsome, and recently divorced.
Oh, my gosh.
She's like flipping through. Which one is mine?
Had unfortunate
catalog.
Exactly. So she finds out that Kenneth is living in Palm Springs. So she packs up her son and moves out to Palm Springs, starts finding out all the places he hangs out.
Wow.
Dresses nice, does her hair and makeup.
So much work.
Starts hanging out at the same, like makes friends with people he's friends with. And eventually all her scheming pays off, and she and Kent move in with Kenneth.
Wow.
During this time, Sante spends her days conning people out of their money, expensive merchandise, and real estate, either through arson, elaborate con games, forgery, or just outright theft.
Wow.
Sante delighted in introducing Kenneth Sr. as an ambassador, and sometimes even impersonating Elizabeth Taylor, who she resembled slightly.
That's awesome.
So, like, yeah, she has kind of like the dark features. She's a little round.
Yeah.
And she would wear these like big dark wigs
Oh, funny.
to impersonate Elizabeth Taylor.
Amazing.
Later that year, at age 37, she switched gears and founded Kiosk Forum of Man Incorporated, which was her and Kenneth's scheme to capitalize off the upcoming 1976 Bicentennial by printing giant posters of American flags marking the 200th birthday of the U.S.
Okay.
The idea was that if they got enough press and attention, they could convince the government to put one of these fancy posters in every classroom in America.
Okay.
So they did the math.
The dumbest scheme.
No,
Sorry,
no,
go on.
no, listen to how great this scheme is. They figured there's like 250,000 classrooms in the United States. And these posters are... Did you pull her up?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Very Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
White Diamonds era.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they figured 250,000 classrooms in the U.S. Times $10 a pop for their posters is like a windfall, right?
Okay, but what about printing costs and shipping costs and
Liz, you are overthinking this.
Okay, go on.
So in 1973, using a forged memo on White House stationery, Sante and Ken get a meeting with Pat Nixon
What?
at the White House.
Wow.
Mrs. Nixon realizes as she's meeting them that they are full of shit and is like tries to avoid a photo op with them by like shushing the White House photographer out of the room. But Sante comes prepared with her own camera and snaps a photo that later appears in the Bicentennial Times, the official newsletter for the big year. She even somehow manages to get her son Kent a spot at the Rose Bowl to lead the fans in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Gosh.
And in 1974, Sante and Ken push their luck and gain attention when they party uninvited in Washington, D.C., slipping past security at the Blair House reception for Gerald Ford, where they attempt to garner his support of their con.
Wow.
They then hail a cab and proceed to crash parties at the West German Embassy, the Belgian Embassy, and finally a sit-down dinner at the Smithsonian's Renwick Gallery.
This is like you think about like computer hackers who like are so smart and but like why don't you just use your powers for good? Like do a legitimate business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So eventually they're forced to admit defeat when newspaper society editors run stories exposing their exploits the night before, and the Washington Post investigates and find that the letter they used to meet Mrs. Nixon is a fake.
Oh.
So they're like, okay, yeah, just forget about the posters.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Okay.
that's over. And her business folds. Each time Sante was arrested, Kenneth bailed her out. They developed a codependency that allowed him to excuse her crimes in order to keep her close. Kenneth is often drunk, and Sante capitalizes on this to manipulate and control him. Sante begins to become concerned that Kenneth isn't going to marry her, as he enjoyed the perpetual bachelor life and had made it really clear from the start that he intended to leave his massive fortune to his grown children from his previous marriage.
Right.
So once again, Sante has a plan. In 1975, she checks into the hotel for quote-unquote minor surgery and gives birth to her second son, who she named Kenneth Kimes Jr., nicknamed Kenny. So remember, her firstborn son is named Kent. So she
Kent
has
and
another
Kenny.
kid named Kenny.
Okay.
Wow.
Poor Kent. Once
Yeah.
Kenny's born, Sante's relationship with her firstborn becomes more and more estranged. He is arrested for stealing surfboards, and Sante condemns him not for his crime, but for the fact that he got caught.
Right.
How many times has she been caught and arrested?
Yeah. At one point, she leaves Kent with Kenneth's nephew for what was supposed to be a couple days, but doesn't return to get him for a month.
Oh,
Wow.
The Kimes family moves to Honolulu in 1975, and Kent repeatedly runs away to be with his father, Ed, who eventually gains full custody of him. So Kent is just like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Best call of this entire story.
Yeah.
In 1978, Sante burns down their Honolulu house to collect the insurance money, and they move to Las Vegas for a fresh start. During this time, Sante began traveling to Mexico. Okay, this is like... It's fun to laugh at a lot of this, but now we're going to start like...
it's going to get heavy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So during this time they're in Las Vegas, Sante begins traveling to Mexico and hiring homeless women off the street as maids and nannies, promising them a better life and hefty pay. However, when she gets them back in the U.S., she keeps them locked up in her home, often emotionally and or physically abusing them.
Oh, my gosh.
This, you can read about how really honest to God terrible and tragic this is. it's a lot. It's really horrible.
Oh.
Her son, Kent, reports her to the police for kidnapping and slavery, but nothing ever comes of it then. So in 1980, Sante is arrested for stealing a mink coat in Washington, D.C. after taking it from the back of a chair in broad daylight and then slipping her own coat over the top of it. She basically like told her husband, hey, just like make a distraction and then I'm just going to grab this coat and put it on underneath mine.
Wow.
But a witness watched her do the whole thing and reported it to the hotel staff, who called the police. I think it's hilarious. I read where like the lady who saw her told them, she's like, it was this woman who looked like a fat Liz Taylor.
Oh,
It's terrible. But like, hey, if you make yourself into like looking like a celebrity, you can't just go do crime in the middle of the broad daylight.
Right.
Like someone's going to be like, I just watched Elizabeth Taylor steal a coat.
Yeah.
Or maybe someone was like, it's Elizabeth Taylor. She can wear as many mink coats layered on top of herself as she wants. So when they went to the suite where Sante, Kenneth, and Kenny were staying, they found several other mink coats as well, all with the labels and other identifying marks cut out with a razor blade. There was also a man's top coat that had been reported stolen. Sante was charged with the theft of the one coat, and Ken is charged with the theft of the men's coat. They pay a $4,000 bond and leave town. For the next 5 years, Sante avoids her trial for the mink coat by having letters from overseas doctors sent in just before the trial dates excusing her. The owner of the men's top coat dies before Ken's trial and the charges are dropped. Sante was finally given a court date in 1985, but she skips town during deliberations and isn't present when the jury convicts her. So her lawyer has her conviction overturned by producing a phony letter saying she had been hit by a car crossing the street outside of the trial and had flown home immediately for treatment, and that it's illegal to convict someone while they're absent.
Oh.
What?
So he's like, yeah, she just bailed in the middle of her trial, but then you guys convicted her when she was gone, and that's illegal. So she gets off.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So while Sante is in Washington for the coat trial, some of the women she has locked up in the house in Las Vegas escape and go to the authorities, even though they're at risk for deportation because she brought them over illegally.
They're like, get me the hell out of here.
Exactly.
I don't care if I have to leave America.
Exactly.
Holy crap.
Right.
They're like, I'll take what I was, maybe life wasn't great before, but at least it wasn't this.
Yeah.
Wow.
So police catch up with Ken and Sante in one of their homes in La Jolla, California, and arrest them both, charging them with conspiracy to violate slavery laws.
Holy crap.
They're both extradited back to Las Vegas, where Sante's held without bail, as she's now considered a flight risk after her mink coat trial.
Gosh.
But she ends up convincing them she has medical issues and should be moved to a hospital, where she proceeds to escape out a bathroom window.
Oh my gosh.
She's caught 3 days later at a bar, where the bartender, who she thought was a good friend, turns her in.
Wow.
So Ken strikes a deal before going to trial and only gets 3 years suspended sentence, pays a $70,000 fine, and has to go to rehab for alcohol
Yeah.
for slavery. Sante's sued and found guilty in a civil court in Honolulu because it turns out she has some of the women over there.
Oh my gosh.
And is
jeez.
sentenced by the U.S. District Court to 5 years in federal prison for violating anti-slavery laws, though she ends up only serving 3 of those 5 years. These both seem like tiny slaps on the wrist for the terrible, awful things they did to these women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just feel like that has to be
There
said.
is so much like how many homes and the jet setting and their
Yeah, right?
and like you have money to pay a $70,000 fine. Like this is wild.
Yeah. While Sante was in prison, the Kens live happily and uneventfully. Ken Sr. gets sober, and Kenny enjoys life without his mother's constant attention and expectations. But when she gets out, Sante is resigned that she would never see the inside of a prison cell again. Not, of course, by avoiding crime, but by making sure she never leaves any evidence or witnesses.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
In 1990, Sante discovers there's a lien on one of their houses in Honolulu, not the one she burned down, meaning that in order to sell it, they would have to pay $900,000 first. So instead, she hires a lawyer named Elmer Holmgren to burn it down so they could collect the insurance money. Elmer makes the mistake of having one too many drinks at a local bar and brags about the plan, leading to an investigation where he admits his involvement and agrees to become an informant.
Okay.
Soon, his office, containing numerous legal documents tying him to the Kimeses, mysteriously burns down as well. This is like Firestarter.
Yeah.
In August, before the case can go to trial, Mr. Holmgren takes a trip to Costa Rica with Sante and Kenneth. He's never seen again.
Oh my gosh.
So while his mom is in prison, Kenny attends school outside of the house for the first time and makes friends that weren't, in fact, hired by his mom to spend time with him, like all his previous friends.
What?
Gosh.
Prior to that, he'd spent his childhood on the beaches of the Bahamas, Cancun, and Guadalajara, where his family owns other houses, and had been homeschooled and taught by private tutors. Sante didn't want Kenny mixing with anyone she deemed beneath them. Eventually, he moves to California in 1993 to attend UCSB here in Santa Barbara. While he's here, he studies communication, and his classmates describe him as always dressing in fancy designer clothes and being opinionated, angry, and even violent. So he's basically like brought up with silver spoon in his mouth, lots of trauma. Yeah, you could have a field day diagnosing this.
Yeah.
So while he goes to school at UCSB, his parents have a nearby multi-million-dollar home that they would stay in, and Sante's relationship with her husband becomes more and more contentious, while her and Kenny slip into one that gets more and more inappropriate.
Oh, no.
It's said that Sante often co-hosted keg parties with her son, and they would sleep in the same room together, often sharing the same bed.
I'm a fun mom.
Yeah.
Like, oh, gross.
On March 28th, 1994, Sante Kimes goes to the bank in Santa Barbara, and while she goes inside, Ken Sr. stays in the car. When she comes back out, he's died of a heart attack. Or perhaps an aneurysm. I read it both ways. Not sure exactly. Sante decides not to tell her son for 3 months so it won't distract him from his schooling. She wants him to go ahead and just finish out his college year without the devastating news of his father's death. Instead, at the end of the school year, she tells him they're going on a family trip and then greets him at the airport with not his dad, but an urn full of his ashes.
Oh, no.
What?
She then hands him the plane tickets and says, "We're going to Hawaii to scatter your dad's ashes."
Not the best way to tell your
No.
kid their dad died.
Not exactly world's best mom.
Wow.
So for years, Sante lies to people about her husband's death, claiming he wasn't in fact dead. He was just gone off to Japan to build a hotel whenever any of his family or friends will call. She fakes his life so that his family can't claim the inheritance before she can figure out a way to spend it or embezzle it into her own accounts.
Okay.
She even tries to file a death certificate with another Kenneth Kimes social security number when they finally they're like, no, he's dead. You have to file this so that we can make our claim.
Right.
So she finds another Kenneth Kimes and uses that social security number so that then they can't, none of their paperwork will go through.
Yeah.
So in 1996, Sante tells Kenny that he needs to leave college. And so he does. And the two set off on a string of cross-country crimes, from more shopping in Florida to murder in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Jeez.
So back in the early 70s, Sante had convinced a man named David Kasdan, who was a friend of theirs, to put his name on the deed of one of their houses in order to avoid a lawsuit. He was assured his name would later be removed, but now in 1998, he receives a notice that a second mortgage has been taken out on quote-unquote his home, and he's now required to start making monthly payments. Kasdan's pissed, but before he can deal with the problem, the house mysteriously burns down.
Oh,
And it turns out the deed to that house had been recently somehow transferred days earlier to a homeless man Sante had befriended from a shelter. A fire insurance policy had also been recently set up in the name of this man, with the claim payout going to one of the Kimes' accounts. David Kasdan reaches out to Sante and threatens to go to police about the forged mortgage and tell them that she was also responsible for the fire and has a history of arson and insurance fraud.
Did they invite him to Costa Rica?
Did they invite him to die?
Shortly after, his body is found in a dumpster near LAX.
Wow.
Whoa.
Another associate of Sante's, Syed Bilal Ahmed, a banker who was in charge of Sante's offshore bank accounts, was murdered in Nassau, Bahamas in 1996.
Wow.
It's believed Kenneth and his mother drugged Ahmed, drowned him in a bathtub, and dumped his body offshore, but no charges were ever filed in that case.
Wow. May I just say, okay,
this
first
is
of all,
exhausting.
yes, like the amount of anxiety that I would have about doing one of these things, not even one of the murders, like just the constant anxiety. And so I kind of wonder if like maybe people who can do this just don't have their bodies are different or their brains
they
are
have
different.
No conscience.
Well, and they just don't have that anxiety.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
For sure. Because even if you didn't have a conscience, you might be afraid that you were going to get caught or something. And like, I just could never.
Yeah.
I
like, this is all horrible, but I'm just like, well, she was very productive.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like compulsive.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what I think that's the nail on the head.
Okay.
Like, she literally can't stop herself from doing crime.
Amazing. I mean, in a bad way.
Yeah. So on June 14th, 1998, Kenny shows up at the home of Irene Silverman on East 65th Street in New York. He and Sante had found out about Irene. She's wealthy. She comes from money. She's well loved. She owns this big, I think she owned, like they refer to it as a mansion, but then there's also like an apartment.
Okay.
So I think it's one of those things where like people just own a portion of a building in New York.
Okay.
So Kenny and Sante have a plan to con her out of her building, basically. So she's trying to rent an apartment. So Kenny claims to be a hotshot web designer named Manny Guerin from Palm Beach, Florida. And so Irene's place is famous for hosting all sorts of people like artists, writers, rich society folks, and even celebs like Daniel Day-Lewis and Shaka Khan hang out there with Irene. Although Irene rents the apartment to Kenny, right from the start, he wasn't exactly well-mannered. He wouldn't let anyone in the apartment once he moved in, and he sneaked around to avoid the security cameras in the building entrance. He spends hours spying on the staff through his peephole, and one day, out of the blue, he shows up with an older woman, and they move in together in their one-bedroom apartment, claiming she's his assistant. It's obviously Sante.
Okay. Oh, okay,
yeah. Silverman, the owner, complained to her friends about her weird new tenant, saying that he, quote unquote, smelled like jail. It wasn't long before
she tells.
Like? I have no idea. I've never been. I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether she meant like he seems shady, or whether
like
he literally smells off.
Yes.
So it's not long before she tells her business manager, like, get this guy out.
Okay.
Before that can happen, after a party she holds every year on the 4th of July, Silverman disappears.
Whoa.
Her worried friends call the police, who check it out, but find no signs of a struggle, no blood in the house, and her new house guest is now vanished as well.
Gosh.
2 days later, after a warrant is issued in another state for Kenny and Sante for previous crimes, I believe it was like a news station airs a story about Kasdan's body being found, and that they've like tied that to Sante and Kenny, and so there's a picture of them on this news story. So the NYPD officers realized that Manny Guerin that they're looking for is actually Kenny Kimes, a con artist on the run.
Jeez.
So Kenny and his mom Sante are arrested on the same day, just a few blocks away in the middle of a bustling street fair in New York. The FBI is the one who actually arrests them because they had been tracking them for months because they had used a fake check to steal a fancy Lincoln Town car from an auto dealer in Utah.
Oh my gosh.
They are just bad at crime also.
But so productive.
Yeah. So at the arrest, Kenny, who admits to wetting his black jeans as he was taken down. I don't know why that was part of a story that I read. So I felt the need to put it in. They're arrested, and Kenny has Irene Silverman's social security card, tax forms, and her American Express card on him, plus a knife and a pair of brass knuckles. The cops also find a forged power of attorney form with Silverman's signature, masks from the movie Scream, a 9mm Glock handgun, plastic handcuffs, an empty box for a stun gun, syringes, and a bottle of some date rape drug called flunitrazepam in the trunk of the Lincoln. They even discover a black bag that Sante had checked at the Plaza Hotel that day. Inside was a fake deed with Silverman's signature transferring her mansion to a shell company controlled by Sante.
Dang.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Productive.
So they really went all in on that one.
What was the scream mask for?
So they put together that basically they put the masks on.
Oh, to go into the
apartment. To go in. Okay. It sounds like they used the stun gun on her.
Oh.
And then administered the drug.
Jeez.
And
gosh,
it was a lot.
Yeah.
Sante and Kenny went to trial first for the murder of Irene Silverman, even though they had originally been arrested for other things.
But they hadn't found a body.
Even though Irene's body was never found.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Nor a crime scene.
Productive.
Yeah. The jury felt that the evidence that they found in the Lincoln was enough to convict them unanimously for not just murder, but 117 other charges, including robbery, burglary, conspiracy, grand larceny, illegal weapons possession, forgery, and eavesdropping. During the trial, the mother and son's antics caused the judge to order Sante not to talk to the media after she was caught slipping notes to reporters.
Wow.
Kenny repeatedly complimented his mother's appearance during the trial.
Icky.
And during their sentencing, Sante went on a tirade accusing everyone, including their own lawyers, of conspiring against them, comparing their situation to the Salem witch trials and accusing them of, quote-unquote, murdering the Constitution.
Wow.
Which once again proves that most people just fundamentally do not understand what happened during the witch trials in Salem.
Do you want to talk about that?
I could go on.
I could be interested in those facts. Can we?
I don't have all the facts, but just like I feel like people are constantly like, "This is like the Salem witch trials," and it's like, no, you're a man who's being held responsible for your actions. You're not a person who was like a woman who was trying to exist in society and then was like accused of being something and then burned.
I would like you to do the witch trials as like an away game or and another thing in the future.
Please. Oh, I would 100%.
I want your take on them.
The book club, this book I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
About the witch hunts and why women are still on trial.
So they were each given the maximum allowable sentence in the trial, 120 years for Sante and 124 years for Kenny, effectively sending them to life in prison. Jeez. Later, they were both extradited to Los Angeles and stood trial for the murder of David Kasdan. Kenny pled guilty in exchange for a plea deal that his mother would not receive the death penalty, and then went on to testify against her, detailing her entire life of crime and explaining how she had manipulated him into doing her bidding. Sante once again performed a sociopathic monologue, denying everything and accusing police and prosecutors of misconduct until the judge basically ordered her to shut the fuck up. The judge eventually called her, quote-unquote, one of the most evil individuals she had ever encountered. On May 19th, 2014, Sante died while serving a life sentence plus 125 years at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women in New York.
Wow.
Kenneth Jr. currently remains incarcerated at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in California.
Gosh. What a wild ride
that was. That was crazy.
I was not adequately strapped in.
No, me neither.
So, a couple other things. The National Crime Information Center lists 28 different aliases for Sante Kimes.
Wow.
There was also, like, Sante and Kenny are suspects in the 1995 abduction of 62-year-old Mary Jacqueline Levitz, heiress to the Levitz furniture fortune.
Oh.
You'll love it at Levitz.
You'll love it at Levitz. I guess she was last seen on November 18th, 1985 by a store clerk at a business where she bought wallpaper, but then she was never heard again. And then a relative later discovered that her front door had been left open. Her bedroom carpet and mattress were soaked in blood. Signs of a violent struggle, including torn off fingernails, were scattered on the floor.
No.
And they say that police believe that it was a botched kidnapping and that her body may have been dumped in the Mississippi River, which ran near the home. And after the disappearance of Irene Silverman, there were similarities that were noted between her case and Levitt's. However, neither Sante nor Kevin were ever charged in relation to that case. I couldn't really see, like, it didn't, I don't know, maybe I didn't read enough about the Silverman case, but it didn't really seem very similar to me because they said that they didn't find any scenes of a struggle or blood or anything in Irene's place. So I don't know. I don't know why they tied that to her. So that's why I didn't include it. Also, fun tidbit, in 2001, there was a movie made about Sante and Kenny called Like Mother, Like Son, The Strange Story of Sante and Kenny Kimes. And it stars Mary Tyler Moore as Sante.
Oh my God.
No.
and Jean Stapleton as Irene Silverman. And apparently it's great. I was going to try and watch it, but I didn't. Maybe we should watch it together. But apparently she plays her as like, and it's funny because we were kind of talking about this before, that like there's a episode of My Favorite Murder where they talk about Sante and Karen describes her as like constantly, like everything is flirtation.
Oh yeah.
So like that she uses that like as her manipulation is like she's constantly just like, and it works.
It did. Clearly it works for her.
Yeah. So that was just interesting. There's so much about this case because it kind of takes place literally everywhere.
Yeah, it does.
It seems like she just,
they got around.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Every time you were like, and then
And one of
Kenny
their
was
houses
in
here.
New York and then the Bahamas, and I was like, that just the travel time alone.
Yeah.
I hope they had frequent flyer miles.
Yeah, I was gonna start with this story has everything, but then I feel like I said in the beginning, like I feel like this is just a thing that I keep finding these wild rides. So
Wow.
I'll start every episode with that. But
Oh my
MTV's Dan Cortez was not involved in this, unfortunately.
yeah,
Wow. Gosh, 8 Ball.
Are you done, Jen?
yeah.
Oh, I'm
that's,
sorry, I
That's all
assumed.
I've got. Yeah,
That was awesome.
it was a lot.
Crazy.
So-
Yeah, I just like it's gonna keep going.
No, I mean there's actually like they did like a 60 Minutes interview.
Ooh.
Kenny got a little wild like between the two trials, and like at one point I shouldn't laugh because it's not great, but like he grabbed like a pen, like a ballpoint pen, and like grabbed a reporter and like was like held the pen up to her
Like Terminator 2.
neck and threatened her like
Wow.
because he didn't want like, but it was weird because they have such a weird relationship that like, so he literally like held this lady because he was like trying to get a better deal for his mom.
That's
or something.
weird.
And it seems like I read a lot of things that talked about their relationship and like when he was at UCSB that like his roommate said that anytime they were together they were just like constantly in screaming arguments, and then like immediately he would be like, no, it's fine, everything's fine, I just need to remember that my mom's always right. And like so it sounds like their relationship was just like super messed up.
What a hot take on that, because his mom was like, not ever right. Like,
I know, right? Like it seems like terrible. There's so much hinting around them like potentially having an incestuous relationship, but you know, that's, I didn't really want to.
Yeah, thanks.
It's not like proven. Neither of them really admitted to it. But he was just always kind of weird. Like when people would criticize his mom, he would be like, "Well, she's just so amazing and gorgeous that everybody's just jealous of what we have."
It just sounds like even if there wasn't an incest, like there's just they were very intertwined. It sounds like in a way that's inappropriate.
There's a lot of
Super
codependency.
Yeah,
and like I said before, it's hard to know. Like her history is really, you know, if those accounts were based on what she said, I don't put a whole lot of stock into it. But I mean, we'd like to think that her background, you know, if she did suffer all this trauma, it kind of helps you like reconcile.
Right.
Like it doesn't excuse it, but it explains it.
Exactly.
Right.
It you know, it's easier to see it as a response to previous trauma, not like you said, not excusing it, but rather than her just like enjoying it, which it sounds like she kind of did too. So maybe she was a sociopath. Or
so do we have a question for the Magic 8 Ball? I think I have one.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so are there unsolved crimes in Santa Barbara County that Sante and Kenny, or just Sante, committed?
Good one.
There we go. Shaky, shaky. concentrate and ask again. Okay.
That's the first time we've gotten
I know.
that one.
I was gonna say that's new.
Come on. Very doubtful.
Oh.
So our various law enforcement.
Any unsolved cases?
Don't
worry about it.
Good job.
Sante
Good job.
This might be the first time that I'm
You're
not on board with.
I know, right?
I don't agree with the Magic
You're
8 Ball that it's
skeptical.
very doubtful. I think it's highly likely based on
Right?
everything we've learned today.
I mean, at the very least, some financial crimes, right?
Sure.
Yeah, right.
Even if not murders.
Wow.
Don't be like Sante,
No.
because her life sounds super stressful.
Yeah, but not for her, I
No,
guess.
for everybody
I don't
else,
know.
I
guess.
It's so interesting.
She had houses. She had money. They traveled a lot.
Yeah. Just scheming.
Oh
I
my
really,
God.
I should subscribe to Millionaire Magazine. Except for I'm not in search of an upgrade. I'm super happy with my current husband.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. This has been the Ghoul's Guide to Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
We've been Summers and Liz and Jen.
Still are.
Yep. So be sure to join us for our next episode about the ghost town of Betaravia.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Bye. Hi, Mom.
Thanks for listening to the Ghoul's Guide to Santa Barbara. Like and subscribe on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Ghoul's Guide to SB.
Our website is ghoulsguidetosb.com. Got a spooky story or know of a haunted or paranormal location in Santa Barbara? Send it to us at ghoulsguidetosb@gmail.com.